This is Carnival Personnel. I'm Joe.
I'm Jacques.
And I am Rodney.
And welcome to something.
The category is boring and tedious for 600. A podcast started in 2017 by a couple disgruntled Hillary supporters.
What is Pod Save America?
Yeah, that could be about 1,000. But don't forget, the category was boring and tedious.
Right.
So that was so. Try it again.
What is Carnival Personnel?
There you go. Woo! Welcome to Sideshow. So today we brought our good friend Rodney, also known as the voice of Worcester, and game show enthusiast, on parallel with Joe. And it's like for years, honestly, for years, I've known Joe with, I don't even know if you call it an obsession, but anybody who has over 20 versions of board games of different 1970, we went through it one day. How many different family feuds are in the Nerd Cave?
2.
No, there's more than yeah. Nice try.
I can't say because of insurance purposes.
and so Rodney and I, you worked for a sporting team together last year, and one day I mentioned it's like, yeah, my buddy Joe mentioned he likes this game show network that, spun off from that game show. And Rodney's like, oh, yeah. And he went through the Wikipedia page off the top of his head of the history. And I'm like, oh, my God, they're like twins.
Mom was holding out on me all these years.
So we've been talking about it for a long time. Rodney with his busy, and you're going to give everybody your your little bio when we're done. But serious, when I say the voice of Worcester, we worked for the New England the Mass Pirates last year, and my kids who really don't, aren't sports kids, they had fun at the game. Their favorite part of the game is Rodney's calls of touchdowns. It's epic.
That. I appreciate it.
No, I mean, and even when, if on the Nessie rebroadcast, they would be like, want me to cue it up so they could, even over the announcers on Nesson talking, you can clearly hear, the rafters vibrating with his bellowing tones. And he does, I think, I lost count, 91 other sports in the city of Worcester that you're affiliated with, doing lots of voice stuff. But you're here because your love for game shows, but tell everybody a little bit about who you are.
Sure. So my name is Rodney.
Who are you, Rodney?
I'm a Cancer.
Tell me about it.
No, that's the guy in the White House, man.
No, born and raised in Worcester, Massachusetts. Obviously, I work out there now, but I have a huge passion of doing announcing, so especially PA work. Currently, I work for Holy Cross. Also work for my old high school, Holy Name. Also work for Worcester State. Also work for Becker. I also this is academically, next year will be my, I believe, 4th year doing the Worcester Telegram Gazette city basketball tournament. I'm excited. It's been a fun ride, and it's been growing for me, and I'm looking forward to do more. I mean, I've gotten to do a couple games for the, I'm just having a blank right now.
The Railers, the ECHL Railers. How about what's the baseball team? Have you done any?
I've done baseball
for
Holy Cross.
I've done Holy Cross,
Holy Cross, but
and how many sports? How many different sports have you? And you can count women's hockey and men's hockey as 2 different.
Yeah. Well, actually, women's and men's hockey, men's and women's basketball, also men's and women's soccer, women's. Oh my gosh, field hockey, men's and women's lacrosse I've done. Obviously, men's baseball I've done. I actually done women's softball. What else?
Any game shows in there? Have you hosted any game shows?
Listen, if I had a chance to do a game show, I would do it in a heartbeat.
Yes.
I just love game shows. I don't know where it started. You know what? I think it started one day when I was sick from school.
That's where it all starts.
And that's where it usually all starts for everybody.
That's the gateway.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then,
Tylenol is a gateway drug, so the price is right.
And all of a sudden, I remember there was actually The Price is Right was one of the very first game shows I watched.
Oh yeah,
and seeing Bob Barker, and
Barker's
then
Beauties.
Barker's
Clean
Beauties.
living.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It was just fun. The atmosphere, the contestants, from all walks of life, and their lives get changed in an instant. And I think I just love it. It's kind of like reality TV, but it's more fun than anything.
It's a lot more structured,
Yeah.
and also a game like Price is Right. It relies heavily on our audience participation,
Right.
and it makes it fun for the viewers at home to think that they're playing along and that they
Right.
can actually someday be on the show as
Right.
well.
And I'm like one of those people too. I still every time I get a chance to watch it from home or anything such as that nature, I'm still guessing the prices.
Oh yeah,
I'm playing right there with them. I remember I had the app on my phone or the game on my phone. Literally, I played it I think it was The Price is Right Decades,
yes.
and it was like a 2-day span where I did nothing but play, so I can get in. Obviously, get in contestants row, get out of contestants row, so I can actually play a game. And,
Right, I know the game you're talking about because they made a version for the Wii.
Oh wow!
And it's set up like the menu is set up like a 1970s living room.
Yes.
And you could play you could play pricing games by putting in like VHS tapes that say the pricing game's name on there. And the point of the game is to like play through the decades. Like you play the 70s version of The Price is Right and the 80s version. So like there's like pre-sexual harassment lawsuit and then post-sexual harassment lawsuit. But yeah, then they also introduced like I think they showed clips like if you were good enough on the game, you could unlock clips of old shows.
Yeah.
I don't think they had any of the retired pricing games.
No.
Like Professor Price. Do you know about Professor Price?
Price.
Yeah, you're gonna have to look that one up. It was the only one that involved kind of like a mannequin, or I guess like a talking head.
It was the 70s?
Yeah, it was like the first season, 72, 73. And like you had to guess.
You were -6.
Yes, right.
-6.
I was -6.
Hey,
on a lot
but
of
we all
things.
know who the Beatles are, so it's not like any weirder that that's your jam, man.
Exactly.
Hey, now.
Right.
Yes, it is. So yeah, I think most people is the gateway into this is The Price is Right, because when you were homeschooled for sick and stuff, mine started actually with the nighttime version of Let's Make a Deal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I remember
Monty Hall.
Monty Hall, and I remember just being at my uncle's house because I was over there a lot as a kid, thinking, I don't get this, but it's awesome.
Yeah,
you
get
know?
to dress up and get on a game show?
Yeah, I always wondered like, did they?
$100 if you have a red Tic Tac, I think women like, I have one. Right? It's like what?
$100 to the woman who dressed as a ketchup bottle. But it was all like weirdly bizarre, and I'm like, and I'm actually thinking as a kid, like watching that, the mechanics of the show, like, did they like did they drive to the studio dressed as like a giant taco?
I would
like,
assume so.
Get it out
Why
of the
not?
trunk. Do they,
Yeah,
and like the honey, dump out your pocketbook. Okay, now let's make sure you have the following 57 items that
we need a Kennedy $50. A Kennedy $50.
And I did, and I've had this thought recently. Like, we make fun of, by we I mean everybody in the Western Hemisphere, Japanese game shows because they're fucked up. Now, did like some Japanese people see Let's Make a Deal with Monty Hall and say, "Oh yeah, they're on to something," right? It's like, and they just took it, and you're like,
they ran
"Whoa!"
Yes. How can we work in women's panties into this?
In a vending machine,
Right.
They are very risque with their game shows. I mean, they really.
There's a borderline of risque, and it's like, oh, somebody is definitely about to die.
There is no sort of waiver signed before they started this game, and I'm all in.
So he was a Price is Right. Was Price is Right the first?
Absolutely, Price is Right. Yeah, I mean, I would watch Price is Right like you, staying home from school. I wasn't sick though. I would just literally just not go to school. Be like,
Not go to school.
I can't.
You skipped it all. We went to the.
They're gonna play hole in one. I can't. I can't just get up and go.
Mom, they're gonna play Golden Road.
Right, Golden Road. You know what that means?
All right, let's start there. What is your favorite Price is Right game?
Oh God,
Oh, my
there's like
goodness.
50. I mean, Plinko.
Plinko, right? Yeah.
It's got to be Plinko. I mean, as a kid, I didn't quite get the strategy of how to get the discs because first they present it with a Plinko board, and then the contestant has to earn. They get 1 free chip, and then they have to earn 4 extra chips by guessing the prices.
If it's higher or lower, right?
No, it's a little bit different. So they ordinary items.
The two numbers.
Yeah, whether the first digit is right or the last digit is right. And I could never figure out well, how are they supposed to know? But then and yes, I was Adam Sandler, confused Adam Sandler as a kid. I don't know how to play this game, Mom. Hey, who are you? I want to play the Plinko. But yeah, so you'd have to guess if the the pepper shaker was, if the 2 was the first number or 6 was the last number. And then, of course, you figure, if it's a $20 item, then the 2 is the right number. And then they do that 4 times. You get the Plinko chips. You go up, you drop the Plinko chip onto the pegboard, and which is another Japanese kind of influenced game because that was a pachinko machine. And I remember the first time Plinko was introduced, I think it was the $5,000 was the largest slot.
Yeah.
And then it was 10,000. I think they went up to $1 million. There was some sort of they had
they would have those special nights or their big money was going to be done, or was it?
Yeah, the $1 million. It was $1 million challenge or something like that. But Plinko was my jam.
Wow.
What about you, Rodney?
You know what? To this day, it's still cliffhanger.
Yes,
because I love hearing that yodeling. I mean, it was so addictive. But I used to get afraid when I was younger to have it fall over because I was always cringing.
I got so much anxiety. That yodeling was haunting. It was just creepy. You don't want to hear that in an attic at night, Which why would I hear that in an attic at night? But that's another podcast. So, but yeah, you'd hear that, and then there is a strategy to play cliffhangers. It's 20, 30, 40. And you'll always win.
Yeah.
The first price is always in the $20 range. The second price is always in the $30 range. Third price is always in the $40. But then you get the idiots who are how much is this chiclet? It's got to be $40, Bob. Got to be 40. And then let's send the yodeling man to his doom.
Yeah.
And then that's when I would burst out crying at the end. Oh no, he's going to go over the 25. Oh.
And you know what we call that? Tuesday.
Oh, I thought you were going to say autism, but
oh my goodness.
But so I'm sure you have many. We don't want to get into your pricing game.
No, but I was gonna. That's what I was gonna say. I mean, that's
the yodeling,
hands down,
cliffhanger.
Not a close second.
I mean, they used to have games like Hit Me, which was a poker game. Blackjack.
Blackjack.
Yep. Then they would have a game called Poker, where you'd have to get they would display 4 prizes, and then you'd have to guess which prizes give you the best hand. Right. So if you guessed the price that was $9.99, you'd have 3 9s, and then the point was to get more than the house. You get a full house.
I don't see that played a lot anymore.
They can't. They canned it because I think all those card games they've gotten rid of because they don't want to explain the rules of blackjack or poker on top of the rules of the game. Back then in the 70s, everybody knew how to play blackjack. Everybody knew how to play poker.
It's true. As a kid, everybody had a deck of cards. Yeah. But I have an 8-year-old who has a Switch. But as a kid, it's we knew how to play. By the time I was 10. Honestly, 2 or 3 different kinds of poker, the Texas Hold'ems,
but yeah, they don't have those games on Price is Right anymore. So that's probably the granddaddy of the game shows as far as daytime game shows go.
Yeah.
What other game shows do you remember watching as a kid, or even as a teenager growing up and seeing, during the daytime? Because they'd have when did you watch game shows? In the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, it really kind of developed more in the 80s.
Yeah.
When I started really watching game shows, but it was always when I was home or homesick or when I had days off. Usually, I wasn't a big daytime game show fan.
Oh,
what were some of the other ones?
I was big in the morning.
That's I mean,
that just because there was so many.
You had Card Sharks in the morning, and then
and that's still one of my favorite game shows.
$25,000
Card Sharks.
Yep, Card Sharks is still one of my favorite. Jim Perry.
Yep.
He had that great voice.
Right.
Just that, the excitement that he brought every time, for contestant wins or anything such as that nature.
And it was always the questions, if you hadn't seen Card Sharks, first they bring out the 2 hot girls to deal the deck of cards. And then you had a row of 5 cards each. And then in order to gain control of whether or not you were going to guess at a higher or lower on your deck, you had to answer a question. And the question was always a poll number. We asked 100 CEOs, how many secretaries' asses have you slapped? Debbie, how many CEOs, all white by the way, have slapped their secretary's ass? Well, I'll have to say that I, being a secretary of a CEO, have gotten my ass slapped. So I'm going to say that's a pretty high number. I'm going to say 88. 88 CEOs, you say, have slapped the ass of their secretary. John? Well, I'm not a CEO, but I do aspire to be one someday, and I slap my wife's ass on occasion, but it's just not the same as slapping a secretary's ass. So I'm going to say that number's even higher than 88. Wow, you are a real perv. You think more than 88 CEOs have slapped their secretary's ass? Well, the number of CEOs that have slapped their secretary's ass is 100. Holy crap. Yeah. That's my card shark.
I know.
Thank you.
Because you mentioned card sharks quite a bit. I think you. Well, maybe I prod you.
No, you mentioned. You're projecting.
Yeah,
I'm kind of curious who's going to be hosting the reboot.
Yeah, that's right. The rebooting card sharks.
That's going to be interesting.
I do like the celebrity host. I guess you kind of have to go with that now in order to get people to watch, and especially if it's like a once a week show. If it was like a 5 day a week type of show, you
like
could put
a returning champion. Yeah.
Exactly. You could put in somebody that's not like an Alec Baldwin or something like that.
Right.
But hopefully it's like a woman or something like different.
Okay.
I wouldn't mind seeing Ellen being the host of that.
Yeah.
Ellen.
No? I don't know. I guess. I mean, she's got that game show. That show.
Oh, the game of
games.
Game of Games.
Yeah. So she's got her own.
Which
thing.
is a spinoff from her show.
Exactly.
Like they took. So okay, I'm going to reel it in a little bit and try to focus it, because that was one of the questions I had. It's like, are there women game show hosts? I mean, what is thicker, the Great Book of Female Game Show Host or the Great Book of Jewish Sports Legends? Which
I'm going to say Jewish Sports Legends, because the only female game show hosts that I can remember are, I forget her name already, but the woman who hosted The Weakest Link.
Oh, yeah.
It was from Britain.
Yep.
And Jane Lynch, who hosts Hollywood Game Night.
Hollywood Game Night is actually a good one.
Yep.
I must admit. Oh, Vicki Lawrence did host Win, Lose, or Draw for a little bit.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. She filled in. I think. Well, when Bert Convy
passed away.
Yeah, Bert Convy passed, and she filled in. But yeah, there really haven't been a lot of female game show hosts. I mean, there've been like celebrity panelists like Betty White. And you had like Kitty Carlisle from the 50s. You had Brett Summers from Match Game. I mean, you have all these personalities, but it's always always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But I think we need a little bit more diversity when it comes to game show hosts.
Yeah, game show hosts come from the Republican Party. I think all middle-aged white guys. Okay, so there's a lot of reboots. What are some of the best? First of all, let's start with that. What are some of your favorite reboots over like the past? Because there's everything that's old is new again. I mean, they brought back I don't consider like the Gong Show a game show, so to speak. But from that to Match, I mean, all these games are coming back. What are some of your favorite reboots the last few years?
Match Game, probably.
Yeah, Match Game. Now it's funny. We were talking earlier that I wasn't sure how Alec Baldwin was going to be as a host. I'll be totally honest. When I first saw that, I was like, really? You would have thought they would have had more so of like a comedian or anything like that. Because I think Andrew Daly, they were supposed to do a reboot years ago.
They did.
On TBS,
well, they filmed it. They said that we actually brought it up on the podcast because there's an unaired pilot that is on YouTube.
It is on YouTube.
Not YouTube. It's on like Video Motion. I don't know. Robert Smigel, I guess, helped produce that show. And it was a carbon copy of the Gene Rayburn Match Game, like the set,
the classic.
Yeah, it was
look and everything.
Yeah, and Super Dave Osborne was one of the panelists on there, and Sarah Silverman and
Sarah Silverman. I remember that.
Yeah. But Andy Daly was the host.
Yep.
And so so that does exist out there.
All right.
They
because I was surprised because I was excited once I saw that was going to be coming out, and I was like, oh, never really got legs underneath it. But Match Game, definitely excited. Actually, I'm impressed with Michael Strahan. I must admit.
Oh yeah,
he does a good job on the $100,000. Is it $100,000?
Yeah, the $100,000 pyramid. Yeah,
and I think he plays the host role real well.
Yeah,
and I give credit because he's a man of many talents. Obviously, Good Morning America. Obviously, with his
NFL.
work with Fox Sports, with NFL.
Yeah.
But it's fun to see him on there. He has good interaction with the
He keeps
with
it
the
loose and he
contestants
keeps it
and
moving.
the celebrity guests.
Right, and he kind of took a cue from the old Dick Clark way.
Yes.
Like they must have drilled it into him, like because I think the producers were purists. They're like, we want this to look modern but feel like the old game show. So like the timing is basically the same as the old game. The mannerisms, like the phrasing,
Right.
the phraseology of like how Dick Clark would host the game isn't what Strahan would now use. But the energy is there too, because you have like Leslie Jones on there, like and she gets freaked out, you know. And she knows that like
She's great.
She knows that if she's trying to win money for the contestants, it's not all about her, but she's just like really nervous. She just wants to do well, but she can't help but be Leslie Jones. But I like the way that game actually plays out and pays out, because there's 2 rounds of the game. So if you go to the bonus round in the first half of the game, you win $50,000. So you can win $50,000. If you stay around for the second half and win that second round, and you go back to the winner's circle, you can win an additional $100,000. So you could leave there with $150,000.
Not a bad day's work, I must say.
Quickly, Joey on Pyramid or Cliff on Jeopardy? Which was the best time a sitcom ventured into the game show world?
I'm going to say Nell Carter on Wheel of Fortune. No, I don't know. Or it could have been.
I had to Google that. I was like, what?
I think what? Actually, I think maybe Mama's Family had gone on Family Feud.
Yes, they did.
Wow. See,
In the 80s, right?
this is why I love you.
It's the
so
only decade
much.
that could have possibly
This
happened.
is why I love you so very, very much.
But if you to say Joey versus Cliff, I actually hadn't seen the Cliff Clavin episode. I know the punchline.
Oh, you're not there yet.
No, I'm rewatching Cheers on. Like I've never watched Cheers.
Watching. Rewatching means if I rewatch Battlestar Galactica because I have no life. Fun fact, I started rewatching Battlestar Galactica.
But we'll save that for the past podcasts that you've already heard.
Obviously not the reboot, but the original.
The good one.
No, the reboot. No, we're not going to.
This is about game shows.
Yeah, the reboot is the greatest show in the history of television. The original only lasted 1 season. It's great. Rick Springfield played. Awesome. But now staying on that. But you haven't got the Cliff Clavin yet.
No.
Okay.
But I also didn't watch Friends. But I had seen the clip. The things that are white.
Yeah, and it's like I forget what it was, but the answer was milk. It's in your fridge.
Oh yeah.
It's white. A ghost.
Right.
and then at like when the poor schlub who's trying to win the money, it's at the commercial break. He's like, those questions are really hard. And Joey's like, yeah, what would a ghost be doing in my fridge? And the guy just looked at him like,
and that was the Donny Osmond version of Pyramid.
No, is Pyramid a reboot, or did it ever go away? Would it?
Yes, it did go
Was
away.
it seasonal or?
It had phases. So you had the 20,000. You had the $20,000 pyramid.
Yeah.
Or first of all, you had the 10,000. Then
Originally
the 20.
the 20. Yep.
Then the short-lived 50.
Yep.
Those were all taped in New York. Then they moved the show to L.A. and that became the $25,000 pyramid in the 80s.
Yep.
Which then had the special $100,000 pyramids.
Bringing back people that
were
had
on
the quickest times of winning the pyramid. Yep.
Yeah, and they had tournaments. Yep. And then that stopped in the late 80s. And it kind of went away until the Donny Osmond version, which is what
Pyramid was just simply Pyramid.
It was just called Pyramid. And then, speaking of unaired pilots, when they tried to reboot the current iteration, Andy Richter hosted.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they taped a series of pilots with Andy Richter as the host of the $1 Million Pyramid.
Oh, wow.
I think they were calling it the $1 Million Pyramid.
Didn't they have a brief time on the Game Show Network too? Because the guy from I forgot what show he was on, but they did have a brief time when it was on the Game Show Network.
Yes,
the
old $100,000 pyramid
with the $100,000 pyramid.
Yeah, but there was the reruns though. It
was a reboot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't remember that one.
When you went through that whole thing, I'm like, I wanted to point out there was no Wikipedia in front of you. You went
Which
through
is
the
very impressive,
Jacques. You're cool.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I wish I could retain it. Now, the funnest part about Pyramid is always the celebrity. And are there celebrities out there today who 95% of what they do is appear on game shows? Because all through like the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, it was always, you went from Pyramid to Tic-Tac-Toe to, the people like McHugh. What's her?
Steve, no,
the Madam, and what was the female ventriloquist, the old lady, like she had. Oh, I see the woman's face. It was like, or maybe it was.
Yeah, it was Madam.
Madam, right? Madam, and who was the?
I forget the guy's name.
Okay,
Dude. Come on.
I see.
What do you think I am?
But that's all these people did, and you go through it. It's like we live for Paul Lynde, and I think 90% of his careers, thanks to the Jews, was on the
Hollywood Squares.
Hollywood Squares. Oh yeah, no, Paul Lynde Cruz.
There's a little story about Paul Lynde not liking Jewish people. So he blamed the Jews for not giving him the shows that he basically blamed them for not giving him like really
being a bigger star.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Because he was a huge star in his head.
Yeah.
but nowadays, I mean, are there? I mean, the hosts are obviously celebrities, but there are, you know.
Well, I mean, it's also harder to get a foothold because you don't have games that run five. You don't have panel game shows 5 days a week. You know, like that. There's no room for that on like the panel shows now are like, you know, the View, the Talk, the Chat, the Shit, the Fuck.
The give me a gun, the let me blow my brains
Yeah,
out.
right.
Is this where we are in life?
Right. Those are all the types of shows you see on daytime now. You know, Ellen
Bring
and
back game shows.
Well, yeah,
please.
Well, they do, but it's all prime time, which is fine because that's the thing is that these old game shows that are coming back now are satiating like this sort of like desire for older folks like myself and Rodney to see these old game shows being played in a modern setting, but it's not feasible to throw it on there 5 days a week. So it comes back as like 13 episodes in 1 hour chunks. Yeah.
So Pyramid is your favorite reboot or
I say Match Game.
And what about you? What about? Because I know they brought back. I thought you might have gone. Is Double Dare a game show?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
they brought back.
No, but would you consider that?
Yes.
Like, I thought you almost.
Absolutely.
I thought you would have said that might have been.
You
your
know what?
favorite.
I didn't consider it, but Double Dare is probably because it was zeroed in on my generation.
Right.
Like I was 10 years old when that show came out.
Right.
And
you always wanted to be on the show.
and I didn't have Nickelodeon until like 91, but it was on. But they showed it on Fox. So I always wanted to be on that show. Fun fact, I do have the Double Dare home game. It's just not
You
down
gotta
here.
be kidding me.
I bought it on eBay, of course, 3 years ago. But I don't
Is
want
it
to
in the
brag.
attic?
No, no.
Call back to the.
In the attic, yes. No, yeah, you're right. I kind of discounted Double Dare, but it's that was like Mark Summers is the man, and he's touring now. Like he came to this area like last week doing the Double Dare tour. So
wow,
good for them. Now the people who were on Double Dare as kids or wanted to be on Double Dare as kids are parents and want their kids to be on Double Dare.
kids to be on there.
Yeah,
you know?
so it's fun to watch, and I don't know, I liked it.
So what's your favorite reboot?
I would say right now would be the $100,000 Pyramid. Right now. Now, I'm holding off until I see the summertime when I see Press Your Luck being brought back. Kind of interested to see Ryan Seacrest as the host on that.
Oh, is he going to be the host?
Supposedly he's going to be the host.
I'll watch it anyway.
I hope with the game shows being rebooted, they keep it to the purest.
Yes.
And
you want to see the big dinosaur board with the with the
that's what made everybody when you see Press Your Luck you say Whammies, but it was the big board.
I mean, each square I think was like 6 feet tall.
Really?
I think because I remember seeing episodes where Peter Tomarken, the old host, would walk in front of the board, and he's the top of his head was just hitting the top of the bottom square. Like that was a big fucking board.
That's a big board.
I mean, I might be wrong, but that was a big fucking board.
So you know what's so funny and weird? Because I was thinking, I remember I was talking to him about it, getting ready for this, and I actually watched the episode where the guy who memorized the.
We did a whole sideshow about that guy.
Did you?
Yeah.
Michael Larson.
And I was just
Amazing.
interested because it was the same. I'm sure if you saw the episode, it was weird to see that you hit the same areas on the board.
Right.
Now,
Well, they did a
I
special.
remember they tried to see if they try to run and see if they how they could discover if he was cheating or not. But
There's
they
a
couldn't find
great.
anything
What's the
on
name of the
him on that,
documentary?
right?
Oh, Game Show Network, like when Peter Tomarken was still alive, he hosted a documentary or a special called Big Bucks: The Press Your Luck Scandal.
Oh, wow.
On GSN, and they explain like they go through it every minutia, like frame by frame, exactly like who he was, how he.
Zapruder film.
Right, it's the Zapruder film of game shows. But basically, he was a guy who stayed at home, tried to do get-rich-quick stuff. He figured out, there's like a pattern to this. And he would videotape the show and then memorize it and then try to play along at home. And so when he would hit pause on the tape, and try to stop the board on his own, he knew there were only 2 spots that never got whammies. There were 2 spots on the board that would never ever get a whammy.
That's impressive.
And there were 6 patterns. There were only 6 patterns at the time. So he figured out and memorized the 6 patterns, figure out the timing on the plunger, and know when to stop when the lights are only in those 2 spots. And you're always gonna get either something with a spin, and then you're just gonna keep going.
The documentary, it's mesmerizing because they're talking to the producers who were like literally shitting themselves. It's like, he's going to kill our budget for the year. Like they were literally worried about how much this was going to.
Think about how much money 100,000 plus would be
the show
back in the 80s. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the biggest payout I think until then. I mean, Pressure Luck apparently had been the highest paying game show on television at the time, because you could walk out with over $10,000 worth of cash and prizes.
Right.
But he ran them for 117,000. I forget the number.
Right.
Shocking. I forgot the number. But it was weird because at the end of the episode, he passed his spins. Finally,
right
after like literally, I think it was like a 40-minute run.
Yeah,
in the second round, he was just going and going, and they had to split up the episode over to 2 nights because they couldn't fit. They had to fit the second round, and the second round took up the entire second episode.
Never aired it again.
Right,
not till the documentary saw the light of day did they let anybody see that because they were just, and they did a big investigation. Like, what was that game show and the quiz show? It became this. Literally, let's bring in how to figure out. Let's talk to every PA in the background. It's like, how was he able to do this? Because they really thought, I think there was a lot of people who thought it was a randomized thing. I don't think many people knew internally that there was only 6 patterns.
Right.
Yeah.
That somebody.
And I'm sure when they reboot it, they're going to make sure.
Oh, the next episode, they shut down production. They added more, I think they made it to over a dozen. It could have been more, and they made it like truly randomized, so that it couldn't be done again.
Okay, so that's where we're, because you mentioned Ryan Seacrest, being the new host, and it makes me sad that and I get it, it's like, it's all celebrities as the host thing versus the host becoming celebrities, like, and it's one of those things. You go and you see an animated film, it's like, okay, why does this, pink dinosaur have to be Ellen DeGeneres' voice? Why can't it be? It doesn't help the story along, but it's to sell the show more.
Right.
I think the shows sell themselves. Would you watch it without? You would watch it even more without Ryan Seacrest.
Let's actually talk about that. Like the old game shows from the hosts from the 70s. Those guys came up from radio. They were radio announcers. Wink Martindale is the granddad.
Who I got to meet a couple times.
Nice guy.
Well, the little post house that you worked in, and like there was 2 Dick Clark Productions, which was about 4 doors down. They vaulted some stuff there. Wink Martindale, which is at Buena Vista, which is right across the street. And I forget the other host, but it's like, and it's tough because somebody like him can't go out of the house unless he looks like him.
Right.
You know?
He has a YouTube channel still.
Oh yeah, I watch.
You watched?
I'm terrible. Yes.
Did you watch the?
I have no life, folks. Yes, I watched that too as well.
Did you watch when they brought back the Tic Tac Dough?
Yes.
Yeah, and they so like I guess the guy who runs his YouTube channel is like a big game show fan, and he's probably helping him kind of promote his stuff. And I guess part of his payment is like, oh, by the way, Wink, could you come over to my house? And this guy also does faithful computer recreations,
which was impressive
of these old game shows.
Yeah.
And he'd have like Wink Martindale come over and for his friends, or sometimes he'd have like a couple of celebrity friends, like older celebrity friends, and they would reenact Tic Tac Dough in his living room. And with the lights,
with their board, and everything,
It's like when Kramer bought the set.
Yes, but it's all on TV. But Wink Martindale comes in dressed up like Wink Martindale, and he sounds like Wink Martindale. He's got the timing, like he's not like an old funny duddy. He's like, oh, that's Wink Martindale.
It's almost like he never took a day off from the game,
show.
Yeah, so he's just so smooth and
yeah, he's awesome. He's an old radio guy. But there was a system in place. You had a guy named Bill Cullen.
Yes.
So
Blockbusters.
Yes, man. Blockbusters was
a big favorite of mine. Child's Play.
Wait, what was Blockbusters?
Blockbusters is a game which was actually much more popular in England than in the United States. It only lasted like 3 seasons on NBC.
Which I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, NBC. I think this is like late. It was early '80s, NBC daytime, and then by '83 they decided to purge like all game shows from their lineup. But Blockbusters was this game where you'd have all these like hexagons, like almost like a honeycomb pattern on a board, but every honeycomb hexagon was filled with a letter. And what you would have to do is the point of the game was to see if 2 heads were better than 1. So you'd have a pair versus a single person. And they'd have to...
I'm in my happy place, folks. I'm in my happy place.
So you're looking at the board with this honeycomb pattern.
Wait. The honeycombs are big.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not small. No.
Not small.
Honeycomb's got a big honey taste, but we'll get to that. You had to. There was a white team and a red team, and you would either have to connect a path, either going from top to bottom or left to right, and the hexagons would have a single letter in it, like W or whatever, just randomized. And then the question would be like, what W is the capital of the United States? And you'd bring in, you'd say Wisconsin, and then you would be wrong because it's not the answer. You do that enough times, and you make a path, and you go to the bonus round, and you do
Gold Rush?
The Gold Rush, yes,
Yeah.
for
Wow,
$5,000.
Yeah.
Rodney pulls that
I
out.
love that, man. It was
Yeah,
getting chills right now talking about
But
it.
then
Was that a daytime, afternoon, or night?
that was morning.
Morning.
Yeah, it was like a 10 o'clock in the morning kind of show. And Bill Cullen was the host. He also hosted Chain Reaction.
Chain Reaction was real good.
He
Yep.
hosted. If you look at, I think he hosted the original match. Price is Right. He hosted the original Price is Right.
Oh, did he?
In the 50s.
Oh, wow.
If you look at tapes from that, he looks like a Matt Damon with glasses.
Really?
Yes, and not many people knew at the time, but he had polio as a kid, and he couldn't walk well, which is why he wouldn't do a big entrance. He would just sort of come in around the corner just enough to stagger over to the podium and just sort of lean on the podium or sit on a stool. And I forget what game he was hosting. I think he might have been hosting Pyramid, like as a guest host, because they those daytime game shows, they would have guest hosts from time to time. And I remember hearing a story of Mel Brooks was the celebrity guest, and Bill Cullen was the host. And Mel Brooks didn't know anything about like his health or anything. So Bill Cullen, during commercial break right at the end of the show, walks over to say hi to Mel Brooks, and he's walking with a stagger because of his polio. Mel Brooks, being a funny guy and not realizing that, he's not doing a shtick, he's really got some leg issues, started walking like him back to him.
Man.
And Bill Cullen loved it. He was like, nobody has ever done that to me, like of your, because it's Mel Brooks. I think only Mel Brooks could get away with that.
He could only pull that off.
But like nobody's addressed that to me. It kind of like made light of that issue to me, to my face, and it was.
I mean, they all do it behind my back.
Yeah.
I can hear the whispers in the hallway. But.
Right, but he loved it. So and did he also host Password? No, that was Alan Ludden, who was married to Betty White. Password, what is the password? The password is
married to. Look, you even know who they're married to.
Well, I mean, that was a big thing. I mean, you watch enough of these shows, you get to know these people's personal lives. But the password, there were iterations of password. There was the original password from the '60s, and then it went away. And
then they brought back, what was it, Password Plus?
Password Plus with Alan Ludden, and then until his death. So he died. Tom Kennedy filled in for him afterwards.
If I remember, Tom Kennedy was the host of Body Language too.
Yes, that was an 84. That was a game of charades. You would play with celebrities, and you'd have to mime certain actions. That's another game.
Okay, what's a game show that hasn't come back? Because you guys just mentioned like 4 game shows, and I'm like, okay,
Well, I was going to go on the history of Password. So they had Password Plus, then they had Super Password with Bert Convy. Bert Convy was, he was an actor, but he was also I
always saw him on Love Boat all the time.
Yes, he was one of those guys. But he was like a singer, he was a stage guy, and a producer. He produced Win, Lose, or Draw with Burt Reynolds in the 80s. And then he died of cancer. The cancer, it doesn't give a shit. But then they did bring back Password briefly in the 2000s with
Regis Philbin.
Yes,
and
$1 million Password.
When they brought that back, and then I saw how they were doing it. I wasn't a fan.
Yeah,
I couldn't because
Apparently, not a lot of people were.
right. It was
it
one of
lasted
those,
only one season.
Yeah, it was like, and it was one of those nighttime shows
Right.
where like 13 weeks probably wasn't a season is like whatever. But Betty White was actually one of the contestants, and the episode that I seen that episode, but yeah, Betty White's great. Did I mention Betty White?
Love Betty White.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I love her and everything. When you see her on in the match games, and you see her back in the days on Password and
Tattletales. Remember
Tattletales?
Tattletales?
Yeah.
Do you know what
Tattletales is a good
Tattletales
one.
is, Jacques? Of course you do.
I do know what Tattletales is. I couldn't explain the intricate rules of the game,
Right.
but I know of Tattletales.
We don't want to gloss over. There's just so many game shows to talk about. I mean, we can look at my board game collection over there.
and
I
just
mean,
go
like
from there.
Yeah, I mean, Trivial Pursuit, the game show. It's a game show based on a board game that has a home game.
Like at the inception
Yes.
of game shows.
It's the turducken of, of game show home games. Of course, Jeopardy, Deal or No Deal,
I remember Monopoly.
Yes.
That was a brief time.
Did
Yep.
you ever see the pilot episode of that?
No.
So Monopoly was produced by Merv Griffin, and it was like 1990, I think it had come out. And thank you for that.
I just never see this. I just took a picture of Joe. He is a bride on her wedding day. When I say he is glowing,
I'm a bridezilla.
when I say he is glowing right now, seriously, this is we're going to start a whole new podcast.
This is an
game
hour and a
shows.
half long sideshow.
This is great, as it should be.
But the Monopoly game show with Peter Tamarkin is the original. I take that back. Peter Tamarkin was the original host. He was not the host, because the host was this unknown up-and-coming guy who kind of went away after Monopoly. I think he was like a PA that Merv Griffin may have seen on the set and thought that we could get him to do just as good a job as Peter Tamarkin. Because I think Peter Tamarkin didn't like the format.
Right.
But my point is that not only do they have like this giant Monopoly board that contestants would use to see where they were in the game and to see what properties that they had owned, but they also had a little person dressed as Mr. Moneybags and hop around on
I'm
the
sure.
board.
I'm sure we could bring that back today,
I can
and that
see
would
where
fly,
that could
right?
cause a little bit of issues.
Little
so to
bit
say.
nice.
And that is also on YouTube. You can watch that.
Oh,
But yeah, again, going back to the game show home games, Millionaire, Price is Right, Concentration. Have you watched the Buzzer has brought back the old concentration games from? Have you ever seen?
I watched the classic concentration from the was it
in the 80s with Alex
early
Trebek.
90s? Yeah,
that was the single years for Alex Trebek, where he was a little randy with the female contestants. It's fun to watch him try to because you see him as this sort of staid and classy guy
Right.
on Jeopardy, but little did you know that he's kind of a horn dog. And it's interesting to watch him on classic concentration.
Oh yeah, it seemed like he was always hitting on.
Yeah, right. And then to have him explain.
And now you see him now, and it's just like
Yeah, well,
elderly statement.
Yeah, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, but
Hey, he's got at least 3 more years to live.
the
here we
cancer,
go.
it doesn't give a shit. And of course, Family Feud. We haven't even scratched the surface on Family Feud.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
I want to get there now.
Okay,
When do we get to the fireworks factory?
put the matches down. We're on our way.
Well, they say there's a first time for everything. And this is the first time we've not been able to complete our game in the appointed time.
Tune in next week for the exciting conclusion to Carnival Personnel's sideshow, Game Shows.
Right now, let me say, Bob Barker reminding you, help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Bye, buddy.